Thank you so much. And welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us for today's session. I'm Kathleen Mulch, Director of AI Engagement and Community here at PMI. And we are thrilled to have with us Andreas Welch, who is the founder and chief AI strategist and also a top LinkedIn voice. He's going to help share his insights and experience and expert insights on how AI is transforming project management now and in the future. With his extensive experience at SAP and across the industry, Andreas will walk us through the trends, challenges, and practical strategies project professionals need to stay ahead. Today's session is part of AI Community Day and AI Month, a global celebration of how AI is reshaping our field. So thank you for being a part of it. It's great to be here today with you, Andreas. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Kathleen, and welcome everyone. I already took a look at the chat and I'm amazed how global this community is. I saw folks dialing in from Ethiopia, from Guam, from the United States, India, all across the world. I think that's a fantastic testament to this community. And I'm excited to see that you're taking the time to invest in your development as well today. So my name is Andreas Welch. I spent the last 25 years in and around big tech, a company called SAP that many of you might be familiar with. And I have helped Fortune 500 companies and leaders figure out what do we do with AI? How do we bring it into our organization? What are the right things that we should prioritize? And most of all, how do we bring our people on board? I'm now independent and help businesses all across the world figure that out for themselves as well. So today we'll talk about what are the strategic trends that every project manager should know. And I personally have managed projects for the last 25 years, whether it was in IT or customer-facing projects or marketing projects or AI projects. So I'm very familiar with what many of you are seeing on a daily basis as well. But I'm also curious. Um, how are you using AI at work already, right? It's been around for a long time. ChatGPT and the like have been around for 2.5 years. How do you use it at work? And how do you use it as a project manager? So please submit your answer in the poll. I'm curious to see what it comes back with. Let's give everybody a moment. When I talk to professionals, when I give trainings, when I host workshops, it's usually a very broad spectrum. Some that say, well, I've just started using it. Others that say I've been using it for a long time. So let's see here. 39% of you say I use it every day. Another 22, at least 2 to 4 times per week. And then the rest once or twice a week or sometimes, or even some that are not using it yet. So maybe you find some good information in today's session to start trying it out in your work and for some tasks. So see what the community says here. Many of you seem to be using it to draft status updates, project reports, but it's a great help. It can help us accelerate things and summarize information and write it in a way that's pretty polished in many cases, helps us speed up things, generating stakeholder communication, summarizing meeting notes, brainstorming ideas. Perfect. I love that. There's a good and a broad variety of how you're using that. So excited to see that many of you are already hands-on. Like I said, for those of you who are new to this topic, I hope you find some inspiration and some actionable things that you can implement in your work as well. When you look at the headlines around AI, there's no shortage of buzz, right? This AI startup has launched this. Here's a new model. Here's some new technology. Then you have either technologists or economists weighing in and saying, well, here's what this means for the global economy. Here's what this means for roles. Work is going to change. We've had AI leaders a couple of weeks ago say, well, half of all entry-level jobs are probably going to vanish over the next 5 to 10 years. They're going to change dramatically. So it's very, very polarizing, right? And to many people, this can also be quite frightening because while there is a lot of opportunity, there's also a lot of uncertainty of what does it actually mean? What does it mean on a macro level? But also, what does it mean for me? What does it mean in our business? What does it mean for my role? And so I wanted to show you 2 examples here. Within within the last 2 or 3 weeks. For example, the CEO of Ford Motor Company spoke at an innovation conference called Aspen Idea Festival. And he talked about the fact that AI is permeating pretty much every industry now. And it's here, and companies are using it, they're adopting it more and more. But he also said, well, most companies are actually not really prepared yet, or not adequately prepared to adopt it. Yes, we see a lot of leaders jump on the bandwagon and say, we need to do AI, or even some others who say, we want to be AI first. But what does that actually mean, and how do you make it happen? A couple of days later, screenshot to the left, the Wall Street Journal picked up some sentiment from that same conversation, and they spun it in a way that they said, well, he's the first CEO to speak out the quiet part that it will cost jobs. But what I think is the most important or more important message is the companies need to prepare, and we need to prepare as employees. Yes, there's going to be some change, right? There's always been change in the way we work. Think back to the introduction of computer systems, for example, or iterations of operating systems, software that we use. So some of that change is natural, but I want to draw your attention to the fact that there are always multiple sides to that same story. And depending on who speaks the words, what is their intent? Are they looking to raise funds? Are they looking to get more users? What's their motivation? Or on the other hand, depending on how the media reports, is it more sensationalism? All jobs are going away. All jobs are going to change. Or is it we actually need to prepare, which I think is the more important and the more urgent and more positive message. So if we need to prepare, what does it look like, right? Much like in our poll just now, there was a study by the National Labor Board in the United States last year who asked participants, do you use AI at work? How often do you use it? And almost 40% of respondents said, yes, I use AI at work. I use it regularly. I'm pretty good at it. And in another survey, first of all, by a company called Slack, many of you might be using it as a messaging platform, but then also by Duke University earlier this spring, they confirmed the stat that you see on the right, that about half of employees that they surveyed said, yes, I use it, but I actually don't tell my manager about it. Well, they said, why don't you tell your manager about it? Respondent said, well, first of all, they might think I'm lazy. Why can I not do this work myself? They might think I'm incompetent. Why do you need help to do this? Aren't you the professional? Shouldn't you know this? Or I might end up with 20% more work because now I'm 20% more productive, right? So here's more work in that 40 hours that you work, for example. So yes, a lot of usage. People are using it. They're getting a lot of value out of it, but they're afraid to tell their managers. And maybe you might feel the same way, right? And to me, that's a big example of what we actually need to do in a company and how we need to change culture, right? None of this is actually happening in that sense that managers are saying, oh, you are lazy if you use AI. And I would challenge it, by the way. I would say it's actually the opposite. You're more efficient and more effective if you use AI and if you use it the right way. So as project managers, maybe some of you are people managers as well, we need to lead by example, right? We need to say, yes, we want to empower you. We want to have you use AI, and we want to show you how to use it in the best way possible so you become more efficient and more effective. Now, looking at how this whole topic of AI even has evolved, how did we even get here? There are four distinct phases, if you will. Early on, probably 90s, early 2000s, and many decades back, right? We used to program software in a very linear way. If this happens, then do that. Pretty clear instructions. Anybody who can write software code or who can read it can follow. What is this program supposed to do? You can debug it. You can step into what are the individual tasks or steps that we want to execute, and why is something failing? But it's been very rigid, right? Yes, we know exactly what happens. If this happens, then do that. But it's not very easy to make changes, right? Or to adapt if your data changes, if your business partners change, if the way you do business evolves, if you expand into new countries and you need to onboard these entities and so on. So mid 2010s, topic of machine learning or an area of machine learning came up where we said, well, now we can actually look at data and we can look at patterns in that data. Are there any correlations? The people who've bought this hammer have also bought this toolbox. Think of e-commerce or shopping examples, or if you if you use services like Netflix, right, streaming, here's shows that you might like based on your previous views or previous shows that you've watched. So recommendations, classification, is this a document, or is this a contract, is this an invoice, those sort of things. And then with the emergence of ChatGPT, we went on to generative AI. All of a sudden, we were able to generate information based on historic data that these systems had seen before. Like many of you have shared, right? It could be summarize these meeting minutes or write a report based on these bullet points and action items. And we're getting more into this probabilistic topic where it's no longer if this happens, then do that, or with the same input, we get the same output. We get, I would say, almost an approximation, right? It's probably this. It's probably a contract. It's probably an invoice. And I'm 95% certain or 98% certain it's this. So that introduces different challenges, right? It's not 100% accurate 100% of the time, which I think is very important for us as professionals as we work now with generative AI, as we work with ChatGPT, Copilot, and the like. It's good, right? It's correct most of the time, but it might not be correct all the time. Now, building on generative AI in these large language models is the next topic. It's called agentic AI. So, hey, if we can converse with systems in language and systems can understand what do we actually mean and they do this well and they can take action on it, well, then we can give it a goal. Then we can say, instead of just summarize these meeting minutes, you could say, send this report, gather the data. Here's the meeting transcript. Here are the action items. Show it to me for review, and then send it off. So give it more autonomy and increase the level of automation. That's where things are moving to. So if you follow the tech news, that's the hot topic this year. It's been the hot topic for about the last 9 to 12 months. There's a lot of investment happening in that area. And there's also a lot of questions that this brings up. Like, well, what does it mean if I can give a system a goal? How do I know what it's doing? Is it doing the right things? Will at some point systems work and talk to each other and work with each other? What does that look like? And so many companies are evolving this and are learning as they're going. They're doing pilots to determine what can we actually do with this and how does it actually work. But coming back to this point of um, some leaders making claims like half of all entry-level roles are going to vanish. Personally, I think we'll see a shift, or we see a change, right? Think about entry-level jobs going away. Doesn't sound very realistic to me, right? Who is going to do the basic work, if you will, or how are people starting in their career? So what I envision is rather the sliding window that you see here, if you will, where maybe today entry-level professionals or even us as professionals, we acquire information, we analyze information, we prepare decision proposals that we maybe send to somebody else and say, hey, here are the 3 options. I would recommend we go with number 1, but you're the manager, right? You're the decision maker here. You make the decision. So what I envision is that AI will be able to help us acquire information. Here is all of our company knowledge, if you will, are connected to your SharePoint and connected to other data sources, to your ERP system, to your finance system, and what have you. And based on that information, acquire the relevant, or based on the data, acquire the relevant information and show me what are the different options. I review it as a human employee and as a professional, and I can maybe make a decision proposal, or maybe I can implement some of these decisions. So to me, it's more shifting from we need to do all the research, we need to find all the data, to AI will help us get that data, present it to us, and we can review it and say, well, this sounds about right, but what about this? Or have you also considered that? Now, with all this doom and gloom, I think we'll need to also see what is actually practical, what makes sense. How would we want to work? How do we want to introduce this into a business? And I think, again, as project managers, we're actually at the forefront of this, because we are working with systems. We have deadlines, timelines, we have constraints, budgets, resources, pretty much everything, right? So there's a lot of interplay and there's a lot of complexity in the work that we do. Yet, there are tasks, like many of you have shared in the survey as well, that are repetitive, that we need to do on a regular basis, that we need to do on a weekly basis, to compile a report and send it up or answer questions. Why do we have a delay here or there? And what can we do about it? So again, to me, AI will help us acquire the information and analyze it better and faster than we could do. But we're still in charge, right? And we need to be in charge to review it and to make those recommendations further up. And with all this talk about AI is here. Maybe you've heard these phrases. AI isn't going to take your job, but a person using AI will. Again, I don't believe in that. But it seems that technology is getting faster, it's getting cheaper, it's getting better. Like I said, every week there's something new coming out, and it's so hard to follow what is actually real, what actually matters. So you might ask yourself, well, our iron triangle of project management, scope, time, cost, is it still relevant, right? Are we now able to solve it finally? That if we make improvements on one, or if we make concessions on the other, that it doesn't impact the other two. Sounds like we can use AI to do a lot more research. We can process documentation. We can gather information. If you work on software projects, right? AI can also generate code and do code maintenance and updates and things like that. Yes, that's right. But I'm sure if you've used generative AI, you might have also seen some hallucinations, right? Where it makes up information that is factually incorrect. So we still need to spend time and review it and make sure that it is accurate. Because at the end of the day, we are accountable, right? It's not some nebulous AI tool or AI system that takes responsibility. It's you and me. Right? It's your name, it's my name that stands next to who has written the report, who has asked for more budget or for an extension or something. So we actually still need to spend time. Yes, we can automate more complex workflows, right? There's some early beta versions of AI, or even companies like Anthropic or Perplexity, if you again follow the news, have announced that they're bringing out browsers with AI embedded that can do tasks for you, right? Book this flight, book this rental car, book the hotel, or even more overall, book a trip for me to Las Vegas or to Pune or somewhere else. And book all these intermediate steps and accommodations. Yes, we can do that, and AI can take action, but again, we still need to review it. And in a business context, we still need people to approve it. So are we really gaining that much time? In many areas, yes. And then lastly, right, things are getting cheaper. Technology is getting cheaper. There's more scale. The technology improves, so the cost is decreasing already. It's decreased significantly from when the first AI large language models came out 2.5, 3 years ago. And what that usually means is that there's a surge in demand. Well, if it gets cheaper now, then I can try out all these things that I've always wanted to try, but that had been cost prohibitive to do so. So yes, decreasing cost, but cost is really just one factor in that equation, right? So again, we still need human oversight. We need human involvement in all of this. And while it seems that, yes, we can increase the scope, yes, we can do it faster, yes, we can do it cheaper, the same constraints in project management still apply. Right? Our iron triangle is still the same. Even if we can reduce the cost for using AI, we still need to spend time to review it. Even if we can create it faster, it still generates some cost, or depending on the level of depth of an analysis that we use with AI or that we use AI for, it might still be costly. Right? So the triangle still remains. But usually when I run workshops and trainings and I ask, well, for those of you who are using AI regularly, how do you use it? And tell me, how do you use it? By the way, I also teach at a local university in the United States. I've asked my students as well. And 6 months ago, they said, yeah, please show us some prompting techniques. And we're really curious. We want to learn. 6 months later, I said, well, we're actually fine. We use it on a regular basis. So no, we don't need to talk about the details, but how else can I use it? But then when I saw how they prompt, what are the questions they asked? A lot of times it looks like what we would traditionally enter in Google, right? what's the capital of France, if you will, or some other more advanced questions, but usually just a question and answer type scenario. So people are using it for a fraction of what these tools can actually do. Right? There's so much more that they can do, but it's really hard to grasp if we don't really know what can I actually do with it. Right? What else can I do other than ask it questions? So I see a lot of project managers, a lot of professionals are actually limited in their use because they use it like a search function. And by the way, if you use it like a search function, we've seen some examples in the news over the years, lawyers who've used ChatGPT to find precedent and find existing cases that ChatGPT and the like confidently made up. So they didn't exist. They submitted it to the court. Court found out that it's actually not real. Lawyers were fined. So we need to also learn what are the limits of these tools, right? What can I use them for? What do I need to check? And usually when you have some pre-existing knowledge, you have a reference frame, right? Is the information that I get back from this AI tool actually good? Is it correct? Is it credible? Does it make sense? Are there any important things that are missing? And you can have a dialogue and a conversation with the tool and say, well, why didn't you do this? Or have you thought about that? Or why isn't that included in your answer? So you can probe it and you can ask more questions. Much like you might would like you might ask your assistant or a more junior team member in that sense. But again, the possibilities, they're pretty much endless, right? Who would have thought that one day we can generate software code and really good code just by telling it, build an application or build a lightweight project management system for me. All of that is possible. So it's up to our imagination and experimentation to tease out what can we actually do? How can we use this? But if you look at your teams, your project teams, or even the organizational team that you're a part of, um, there are some guidelines that we need to set. It's one thing to say, yes, sure, we want you to use AI, which I think is the first step to begin with. We need to empower people. You should be using AI. You should be using more AI because eventually it will make you more efficient. It will make you more effective. But just saying that, right, doesn't really help that much because people might use it already, or they might not tell you, they might not tell their boss because they're afraid that others might view them as being less competent or as being lazy. So we need to actively encourage our peers and our team members. Say, hey, yes, here's how I want you to use this tool, right? So we get to quality and values. I'm sure a lot of you might have seen this as well over the last couple of months. Somebody, maybe one of your project members, sends you an email, says, hey, here's a first draft. Can you take a look at this? And you read it and think, come on, that's kind of sounds like you've pulled this straight out of ChatGPT. Did you cross-check this? Oh, looks like here's some things missing, or it sounds very generic, it sounds very bland. And just because we have this technology available doesn't mean that anybody's off the hook now to do good work. Just because we can do it faster doesn't mean that all of a sudden quality can take a backseat. Quite the opposite, I would say. Right? So as project managers, as people managers, we need to set that bar where we want and where we need it to be. And it's usually very, very high, right? So we have high expectations towards our team members to do good work, to deliver high quality work, to give their best, to bring in their expertise. And it doesn't matter if they work on tasks or projects alone, if it's all them or them plus Google, if it's our team member or project member and more junior members or other members across the organization, or in the third category, if it's human team members and AI. It doesn't really matter. The bar is still there. High quality work. That's what we need to do. Otherwise, right, our projects won't be successful. Our products won't be successful. Our customers won't be happy. So all the ripple effects. So just because we can use AI to help us in certain steps of our process and our work doesn't really mean that we can cut corners. So quality, values, how do we want to work together? And then the last part, accountability. Yes, it's still us. It's still you and me who are responsible for the output that we forward on. Just because we can generate it faster doesn't mean we don't need to check it, right? So to me, those three, empowerment, quality and values, and accountability, are really, really important. So I would ask you, challenge you to think about this as you either start your next project or as you go into your next review. How do you want to embrace this with your team members? How do you want to empower them and say, yes, hey, actually AI use is important. It's important we all do this. I want you to do this, but here are the guardrails. Here are the guidelines within which I want you to use this. And see what the response is and how people use it. The other part we need to think about is how do we actually delegate? Right? If you use tools like ChatGPT or Copilot and others before, yes, we can say, hey, create a draft for a project plan. What do you get back? Something that's usually pretty generic, pretty bland. Yes, it's a project plan. Yes, it's a table. Yes, it has steps, but it's not very specific. So yes, we need to give it more information and give it more context and all of that. But also now thinking, again, back to this topic of agentic AI, AI that can take on goals that we give it. How does it change? How does our communication need to change? And I feel as people leaders, if you go through trainings in your career as you progress, there's this framework that I've usually found very helpful. Right? And that's if you are a people manager, if you're a project manager and you delegate a task, you should tell the other person, what is the objective? What do I want you to do? What's the objective? What's the context in which you work? Are you working alone? Are you working with different departments? How does it fit into the bigger picture? Is this one work package that's part of a bigger project? For example, what data do you have available? Do you need to gather it? Is it here? Is it there? Where do you get it from? What other people are you going to work with? What resources do you have at your disposal? And then last point, what's the outcome? So how do we actually decide once it's completed if it's good, right? If you've achieved the goal, if you've achieved what I've asked you to do, in what might be second nature for people managers who've gone through that training as individual contributors, professionals, project managers, I think we need to have that kind of reference frame as we embrace AI, as we bring more AI into our workplace. So what's the objective? What's the context within which I want you to work? What data is available? What other resources do you have at your disposal? And what's the outcome and how do we decide it was good? So with that, I'm curious and I would love to have a little bit of interaction here as well. Many of you have been project managers for a long time. Some of you might be new to project management. What do you find is the most energizing aspects of your project management role? And what are the ones that you find are really, really draining? And we all have these kind of things in our work lives, right? Where we say, hey, I'm really, really excited about this, but if only I could drop that or give that to somebody else or did not have to do that. So what does it look like for you? We'll give everybody a couple seconds to put in their answers. We'll take a look at the poll. So what energizes you and what drains you as a project manager? For me personally, I've always enjoyed working with team members and seeing how I can help them and where they're stuck and how we can move things forward. Um, I wasn't always a big fan of the status reports. So let's see here what you're saying. Leading cross-functional teams seems to energize a lot of you. Defining the scope and aligning on goals, delivering results under tight deadlines. Yes, right. We pulled this off. Right? Nobody believed that we could do this, and we were able to do it. What's draining? Yes, creating reports. Thank you. I'm not alone. That's good. Managing team conflicts, interpersonal dynamics. Yes, right. There's always this one person, or at least one person, who's always done it this way, or who has a different opinion. That isn't always easy when you want to move forward or you need to move forward quickly. But yet we want to make sure that we bring people along, right? So it seems, yeah, like the shifting priorities, interpersonal dynamics, reports are the things that drain you. Well, what if we could use AI to help us with some of that? How about we just automate that process of getting status updates? Here's my list of project members every Monday morning or every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Send an email to the project team members, say, what's your update? collect it, have AI put this into a nice report, and we're done. Great, right? Or are we actually just offloading some of the work to somebody else? Right? Maybe they need to sit there and they need to type it, and it creates more work for them than our previous process. So what I want to convey with this and challenge you is that yes, AI is here and we can use it and we should use it. We also need to be mindful of how we use it. Just because we can and it helps us save time, we also need to apply some system thinking and think, well, what does it mean for the person before me or after me in this workflow, in this process, basically? Am I just optimizing my part and somebody else now needs to work double? Or how can we optimize it for everyone? So yes, it's possible to do some isolated optimization, but let's think bigger and broader of how can we optimize our process? Do we need to have regular or short interval type reports? Do we need to do it every week, or can we go to every other week? Questions, changes like that can already have a big impact with or without technology. So, but again, just because we can automate it and because there is technology doesn't always mean that we should automate it. So think back to how does our business actually work? How do we want to run our projects? And who do we collect information for and from? And are we, at the end of the day, not just generating more work for everybody else? So challenge those assumptions too. Now, we also talked about the AI tools being generic productivity boosters in many cases, right? So use them like a Google query. But guess what? We can also pivot towards more strategic partnership with AI. So I want to show you 3 examples very briefly here. Just as examples, you don't have to follow them word for word or use the same prompts, but just to get the idea across. Right? So instead of saying, hey, what can I do here? Like a simple Google query, think about using AI as a thought partner. Right? Can you review this high-level timeline and identify where the biggest risks might be? And all of a sudden becomes a thought partner. Well, it might ask you, have you thought about this or that? Or it looks like here are some gaps, or these tasks are on a critical path, things like that. I say, well, I have 3 different options. I can do this, that, or the other. Which one do you think I should choose and why? What are the pros and cons? So again, and then start having a conversation and a dialogue as you might have with a community member, for example. Or you it as a sparring partner. Right? Hey, I'm preparing for this stakeholder meeting that's coming up next week. I have these stakeholders, the CFO, Chief Revenue Officer, Head of Operations in this meeting. Here's how they would typically react, or just based on tendencies in general. Can you role play with me, and can we anticipate what would some of the questions be that they might ask me? And ChatGPT, Copilot, can you give me feedback on my response? Is it good? Is it specific? How can I improve it? So things like that as well. Or the third one, can you use it as a personal coach? Right? Like many of you said, we have these difficult team members, and it's not always easy to work with them, or again, have them join the cause. So how can I navigate this? What are ways in which I can approach the team member and have the conversation with them? Can we, again, role play, and maybe you, ChatGPT, take the role of this maybe disgruntled team member or an unproductive team member, and I will ask you questions. I will guide you, and afterwards you give me feedback how my performance was. Where can I improve? What can I do better? So things like that. Again, and it's not just the, hey, create a project plan or create a report for me type of productivity use cases, if you will. For all of these examples, please keep in mind, I'm sure many of your organizations that you work with or work for have AI policies in place. Don't put any confidential, any data in there, any personal identifiable information there. And please adhere to your organization's AI guidelines. So again, just 3 examples: thought partner, sparring partner, and personal coach. And then when you think about, well, where can I use it? There are usually 2 concepts that come to mind. One is called human in the loop, and the other one is called human on the loop. So say the loop is our process. To what extent do you need to be involved when you use AI, when you delegate tasks to AI? Do you just need to review what AI gives back to you? Do you need to make decisions? Do you need to give it answers? Will it ask you for additional information? Can you ask it for additional information? So is it more on an eye level, if you will? Then I would say it's more this human in the loop. So where do you need to be involved? Probably some more critical things, whether some risks, financial risks, maybe, or on the other hand, human on the loop. So think about it as more of delegating to maybe a more junior team member or somebody else that you um, that you trust, that they do some work and you just review it. Right? So human on the loop, AI does the work, you review it, you say yes, makes sense, or no, go back to the drawing board and let's have another iteration. It's usually a pretty good um, um, difference and way to distinguish, do I need to be fully involved or can I delegate and I just review? So with all of that information, the excitement about AI being here and being available to us, and us needing to still review it and guide it and use it in the right ways, I would like to leave you with this. And I would ask you to put this into action. First of all, evaluate where in your work as a project manager and with your teams you can use AI. Right? Maybe it's the status reports. Maybe it's the messages sending back and forth to team members, or sending up to executives and project sponsors. Where can I use it? Encourage your team members to use it as well. Use it the right way, right within the guidelines of your organization, with certain guardrails. Make sure that you check the output. But most of all, please do get hands-on, experiment with it. It's the best way to learn, and it's never been easier and it's never been more available, more readily available than the technology is right now. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. We'll move on to Q&A. If you like to follow me on LinkedIn, here's the link at the bottom. Like I said, I regularly work with organizations and leaders to help them figure out, what do we do with AI? What are the things we should prioritize? And how can we bring our people on board?
So, with that, I wanted to thank you all so much for joining us today. And a big, big thank you to you, Andreas, for such an insightful presentation and Q&A session. Don't forget to visit the AI topic page on projectmanagement.com if you haven't done so already to stay up to date on all AI sessions happening both today and beyond, and to keep the conversation going. Stay curious, stay adaptable, and continue leading the way as AI shapes the future of project management. Until next time, we'll see you in the comments. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.